Recent data and mapping analysis has found that 60,000 homes will be vulnerable to coastal flooding by 2050. Areas of Dublin, Louth, Clare are expected to be the most affected, and I'm glad to see further funding in the Minister's statement today for that issue. A further study has found that Ireland will be among a number of countries that will bear the brunt of increased flooding, and the frequency of extreme flooding is likely to increase from a 1 in 100-year event to possibly 1 in 50-year event. These same researchers have called on governments to concentrate on the robustness of their flood management strategies, but also to ensure that communities and people are safeguarded against them. Has the Minister consulted with the insurance industry about whether they have witnessed in recent years an increase in compensation payouts on their flood insurance policies? And what are the Minister's plans to assist those who are unable to obtain flood insurance?
Thanks, Deputy. I have indeed met with the insurance sector. I met with all of the CEOs of our insurance companies earlier on in the year, and I met with Insurance Ireland a number of weeks ago, and I had another meeting, in fact, only this morning with the Alliance for Insurance Reform. In those particular meetings, all of the focus were taken up in relation to the cost of insurance and in relation to some other policy areas. My understanding, though, is that there has been a definite increase in the costs in relation to paying out for flooding issues across our country, as the frequency and severity of those floods have also increased over time. In relation to what we are looking to do to support homes and businesses that are not able to get insurance, the main work that is underway in relation to that, Deputy, is work that's happening at local authority level to put in place flood relief measures, and then working with insurance companies to get that work be recognised by the insurance companies as actually reducing flooding risk. You'll be familiar, Deputy, with this in our own constituency, where, for example, work that the OPW have done in the East Wall and North Strand area, while it has not brought back the insurance that our constituents would have had in the past. More of them are able to access insurance than they were in the aftermath of flooding that happened there a number of years ago. And while the premium is still higher than they would want and I would hope, what is positive now is that the insurance sector has recognised particular projects and at least are recognising that in making insurance cover available. And what I would hope, Deputy, is that as work in relation to, for example, the CFRAM project continues to go ahead across our country, that this is recognised by more insurers in terms of insurance cover that they're willing to make available.
Sir, as you mentioned, our own constituency there, the transition statement identifies that the most profound health impacts of climate change will arise in relation to, firstly, severe weather events, secondly, ultraviolet radiation, and thirdly, poor air quality. My colleague Patrick Costello TD gathered some data at the start of the year around schools showing that additional traffic doubles the nitrous oxide level around during school term. The EPA says Dublin city centre air quality in 2019 was likely to breach EU and World Health Organization guidelines, and that this is due largely to our reliance on fossil-fuelled motor vehicles for transport. Their report included advice from the World Health Organization suggesting we lift young children above the level of vehicle exhausts. I'd suggest reducing car traffic is a more practical option than carrying children around on your back. In spite of this, the OPW seems to have very little inclination towards doing anything about car traffic through or in its properties, a case in point being the Phoenix Park. During the shutdown, we had a window onto what the park should look like, a natural haven. My colleague on Dublin City Council, Michael Pidgeon, in a short space of time garnered over 7,000 signatures on a petition calling for the park to be closed to through traffic. In spite of this, the OPW's first reaction was to propose reopening the gates to traffic. And we've seen in the past few days that the main avenue has become gridlocked with traffic and with the associated NOx emissions as a result of the OPW's decision. Can the Minister for State or yourself outline what plans the OPW has to reduce fossil-fuelled motor vehicles or to its properties, and especially in the case of the Phoenix Park?
Thank you, Deputy. I actually spoke to the Commissioner of the OPW in relation to this morning. As you'll know, given that we both represent a constituency adjacent to the Phoenix Park, it is the current state of play at the moment is, I understand, that the two main gates are open, and that therefore means the park has been used for access in the way you've described. The OPW are considering a number of options in relation to the gates and in relation to where parking is allowed. They've informed me, however, that the kind of issues they're looking to deal with fall into two different groups. The first group is the fact that we have a hospital, we have the Garda head office, we have and a number of other state facilities located inside the Phoenix Park, and they have to take account of that in any of the decisions that they're making. And the second issue they're looking at is if they make decisions in relation to access in and out of the Phoenix Park, what will be the effect in the movement of traffic back into communities that either live near the Phoenix Park or are using Chesterfield Avenue as a way of accessing the city centre. As I said, I spoke to the Commissioner this morning. They're looking at options in relation to this, but as you'll appreciate, there are many different consequences for any different decision they take. I've heard and I'm well aware of how great the Phoenix Park was for so many during the highest phase of the lockdown that we had, and I would love to see the park being used in a way that is more conducive to recreation and in which it can be used in the greenest possible way. But I do believe that the issues that were outlined to me by the OPW this morning are important issues, and they do deserve full consideration before further decisions are taken.
Thank you, Minister. Upgrading our homes, offices and public buildings to ensure that they use less energy will be one of the most cost-effective ways to reduce emissions and limit climate change. The Office of Public Works, with its property portfolio of roughly 2,500 buildings, including over 200 large government and state agency buildings, must lead the way. While it is important that energy-efficient design be incorporated into all public sector projects from the early design stage onwards, we should also ensure we upgrade and reuse existing public buildings over new build construction where possible. Through OPW refurbishment projects, the Government can ensure it plays a consistent and exemplary role in driving the energy efficiency agenda. Per the Climate Action Plan 2019, the OPW were to take the lead on examining how and when fossil fuel heating systems could be phased out of public buildings, including disallowing the installation of any new fossil fuel heating system. That's Action 62. This was due to be complete by the end of 2019, and I can see no update on this action provided in the Climate Action Plan First Progress Report issued in October 2019. Can the Minister confirm that the action has been completed and provide some detail on the outcome?
Thank you. I can't confirm to you that the action has been completed, but I know that work was undertaken to deliver it, and I will write back to the Deputy with a full answer to that particular question.
Finally, back to the Phoenix Park. Last year, the OPW proposed a redevelopment plan for the Phoenix Park that included the addition of retail, significant new construction within the park, the relegation of nature to biodiversity quarters, and the construction of new permanent car parks in the Phoenix Park. This was met with much opposition from the general public, and to its credit, the OPW took much of that opposition on board. However, the OPW should take the lead in protecting biodiversity as part of its climate targets and build heritage in its properties, reducing the associated emissions from those properties. And it should not require a public campaign. Are there processes in place to have material proposals from the OPW reviewed by independent consultants on things like habitat loss, biodiversity, native wildlife, historic landscapes and indeed flooding?
Thank you. I'm not aware that the Office of Public Works are looking to take any further action in relation to the Phoenix Park in the way the Deputy has just described. In terms of what are the processes that are necessary for the OPW to go through in order to do the kind of things that the Deputy has just noted there. I mean, they have to make everything public, and by making everything public, then it can lead to better evaluation and scrutiny of what they're looking to do. And of course, anything they're looking to do that requires planning permission has to be done in a very, very public and transparent way. There are not processes or structures available whereby if the OPW look to do anything, that is automatically a cause for independent review or for consultants to become involved. If that happens, it's going to be because they have to go through the planning process, or it's because they're required to go through a statutory process.